Okay, hey everybody, Brad Linder back at you again with another daily card. We've got the coloring of the Thor card, as some of the people have been asking me for. So bear with me just a second while I get this over, and we'll go from there. Popping it over on the page so everybody can see. Okay, cool deal. All right, make sure everything's functioning okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with the flesh tones here. I've got an E11 and E13. I'm going to start them off this way so we can get the old skin tones in place and go from there. That way they'll dry in balance with the rest of the colors. Because these skin tones don't, with these Copics, they don't dry as quickly. It takes a minute for the color to set because of the tone it is, I suppose. I don't really know why yet, but it goes from a wet marker look to a solid skin color, more of an actual skin fleshy look, rather than washed markers, thank goodness, when it dries. So I like to let this one dry between coats, just because of the fact that it tends to look better. You know, it brightens up a little bit, and looks better. It doesn't wash out as much like some of the other colors do. It tends to like sit there and just puddle, and I don't like that. And it's just with the flesh colored markers I've noticed. It's just the flesh tone, and it's not anything different in the chemistry of the marker itself. It's just that the color, when it dry, if it doesn't set and dry in between coats for the flesh tone, it just doesn't tend to look like flesh. It looks like a marker, you know, a washed look, and it'll look a little muddy if you don't be very cautious with it, if you're not careful. So it's okay if it overlaps like that. This is a very forgiving color. In regards to other colors, it's just not the flesh tones that it tends to like that yellow that I put into those eyebrows in a minute will wash that little edge, and that little edge right there with those bleed overs out with no problem. And unfortunately, I'm a little heavy-handed with this one because I want to make sure everything's coated, because skin doesn't reflect the same way. And being a sketch card, I'm not really pacing this quite as gingerly as I would a finished comic piece. I mean, just to be perfectly honest with you, because normally I wouldn't even go over this as heavily as I am right now. But it being flesh tone, I want to make sure it makes the edge and it doesn't look wavy and all that, as it can, you know. But the reason I'm doing these color sets this week is I want to have a lot of the sketchbook stuff done. And you guys have been asking me about the techniques of, you know, since I draw so many of the cards, people have been asking me left and right what's going on with the stuff down here, you know, with the coloring and the finished pieces and whatnot. And I was like, well, I'll do a few online to show how that's working out. So this is the instant jump over that everybody's been asking me about, because they're like, well, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to? It's okay. I'm going to use a neutral 2 on the helmet, and I'm going to go a little darker with the hammer because of the fact that I want it to look like different metals. And I don't know, the helmet's always had a gray blue hue to it for reflection and whatnot, and I want to make sure that it has that vibe to it. So that's the reason for the edging on this one. And it's not going to be smooth because I want it to look rippled like metal, you know. And I see so many people not do that. they're just like, well, I'll color it out and then I'll go in and whitewash it. And um, why do that? Why do that? You know, you don't have to. Put the shadow on one side there. Leave that rim. And everybody has their own techniques, of course, but for me, I like to do it a little more sporadic this way so that it gets a little more life to it and the light's not direct. You know what I mean? It gets filled in a little bit, but it doesn't get saturated to where it's like it's colored. And it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. You know, everybody wants to go, well, I like to see it all colored in, and it's supposed to be a silver helmet. Why it's all the white? And, you know, to each their own. I totally agree with that, but it shouldn't be overwhelmed. It's supposed to be shiny. It's supposed to be shiny, and it's supposed to be representative of the character. So it's supposed to be a very glorious armor. So go in here on this underside, like that. Just kind of mark it a little bit. I'm going to go on this side because it's got a heavy ridge there. But I'm going to get this one. Dink. There we go. Cool deal. Same thing with the disc. I'm going to go in with a lighter gray, same lighter gray. I'm just going to kind of wash that out a little bit. And I want it to have that brush wave look. And when you do the ripple effect like this, do that with your markers. Go with a squiggle when you fill them in like that, because then what it'll do is it'll cause 2 or 3 layers of tone, and it'll give you an extra ink jolt here and there on the up curve, on the thicker part. And what it'll make it do is it'll make it look more washed and make it actually tone out where it's got a depth and curve to it, where most of the people just color it out flat. I like to do it like this from the outside, preferably, and do this mess like this for some reason, because you see how it's toning, you see how it's putting the ink heavy right there along that line, and it's putting a little lighter on top. And what it does is it layers it to where it gives kind of a optical illusion of being curved. I streak it that way because then you have that dark streak right there, that dark streak right there, and it looks like it's got a rippled or hand hammered or curved effect, like it's really a disc. And I don't know why more people don't do that. Yeah, but maybe it's just something I like. I don't know. But for me, it gives it a little more life that, you know, some of this other stuff just doesn't have. And that's okay if it's just me. I'm cool with that, really. So anyway, I'm going to go into this darker gray here. I've got a BV23 with a little bit of a purplish tint to it. And I want to do this one for the hammer, because it just gives it that cast iron, that almost that blue gray cast iron look, which I really, really like. So, and again, with this being metal and having smoother edges or shinier edges, I want to go in here with it looking like it's porous or ridged. So making the strokes a little rougher to where it does have that grit to it is actually preferred, because then it does look like it's molded or hammered or forged rather than just die cast, you know. That was one thing I hated about the original 80s film where Thor versus the Hulk, or Daredevil versus the Hulk, whatever it was, they did back in the 80s with Lou Ferrigno. And it had Daredevil, Thor, and the Hulk in it, obviously. And they used like this big, I don't know what that thing was made of. But, I mean, it was good for the time. But, yeah, it just was not comic book quality at all. I mean, they went in full force with what it would look like if Marvel went to television kind of thing, and that's exactly the look they went for. Let me see here. I'm trying to pick my yellow now. I'm going to go ahead and do the yellow on the eyes and whatnot. The eyebrows, more so. The eyebrows. I'm going to put those in, and I'm going to put them in a rich yellow because this will dry a lot lighter than it actually looks. But I want it to be rich in color for Thor's golden locks here. A lot of people have trouble with that because, you know, they like to do this this whole highlight thing where they go around like that and leave one side light, which I'm fine with. I don't knock that at all because I do that a lot too. It's just in this particular case, I'm not gonna, because I want that hair to be a little bit duller than the rest of the suit that's gonna have highlights on it. I want it to stand out. And with prominent colors like blue and, you know, that bright red that's going to go on the back cape, I want to make sure it's going to pop out and that yellow is really going to contrast. And the way you do that is you color this solid. So there is no doubt about it. Okay, cool deal. And I'm going to go with this very bright, almost electric blue. It's let's see, it's called Robin's Egg Blue. And I'm going to go in here with his eyes, because originally his eyes are blue, and that way we can do that and make them pop out. And now I'm going to go with the coral red first. This one has kind of a lighter, almost Crayola marker look. And I want to do this for a reason. So bear with me, because some people are going to be looking at this and going, that's not the right red. I know it's not. I know it's not. Because it looks pale in comparison. Normally the bright, you know, strong cherry or candy apple red in most cases. Oops, got a little bit of a bleed there. When that happens, I'll show you a technique. When your Copics start to bleed like that, just flip them over and let the ink run out of the brush tip. Don't tap it, because then it'll go into the marker point. But I'll go back over that in just a minute and blacken it out. Build out the edge. It's what you got to do. Sometimes they do that. That's okay though. I didn't notice. I was talking and didn't notice that the tip filled up. They do that sometimes, but like I said, don't bang them, because you got double tips on these and they'll bleed through that other block marker tip, that wedge. So just tip them up like that and you'll see the ink run back out of it into the tube, and then you won't have to worry about it. That cracks me up when stuff like that happens, because this is live, you know, and everybody gets bent and it's like, ha ha, you screwed up. No, I didn't. I'll fix it. Now I'm going to come in with this other dark red, and I'm going to catch it on these low points like this. And this one is a strong red, an R46. R46. Just so you guys know what I'm doing. And I'll go in with these shadow points here, like that. Yay! Now we got some dark lows in there. And then what I'll do is I'll come in with this lipstick red, which is actually the right red for Thor's cape. Okay. And you can see I've used the crap out of this one, and that's a technical term. See this, the spots in the tip? I'm going to have to refill this one soon probably. I've had this set for almost 2 years with no problem. So having to refill it now would be perfectly okay. Seriously. Okay. Now we're going to leave some highlights on that, and it'll be fine. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab my Sharpie and bear with me just a moment so it doesn't dry out. I'm going to grab a micron. Yes, I'm going at the sketch card with a Sharpie. Center! And apparently this one's a little dry. This micron here. There we go. Cool. Now, as you got to see that work on the fly, now I'm going to take this Sharpie right here. And I know everybody's watching to see if I'm going to screw this up or not. If I'm going to let it bleed over into the cape and have the opposite effect. Nope. Just an old school cover-up. No biggie. That's what you got to do sometimes. It happens. It happens. But at least the card's not jacked. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get into what did I do with my blues? I'm going to grab some blues here for this cape, which I did not pull out for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, that'll work. I had them laid out, but I didn't pull them out of the box. Anyway, there we go. I had them set in the bag, but I didn't pull them out on the desk. Again, live broadcasting. You didn't do it. And because his original armor was blue, I like to do the highlights blue and not go crazy with the whole white highlights, because this was supposed to be a dull fabric, and the highlight is the blue. At least the way Walt Simonson did it. Most of his Thor stuff was black, like this. And that's who I based it off of. That's who I learned to draw Thor from, was the Walt Simonson stuff. Art Thibert as well. He used to do a killer one. Yep. Okay, cool deal. Now, because I didn't do a line down here, I left this open. What I'm going to do is go ahead and shade this off like this. So I'll go ahead and block this off. And that'll save us from having to color in a background, which I didn't draw in on this one. Which I didn't draw a background on a lot of these because of the fact that I wanted to focus on the character for the time that I had, the half hour or so that I was doing each card at the time, and that I'm going to continue to do each card at the time. But, you know, some of them are getting more advanced as I draw a little faster with these and get a little more comfortable. I found out that you guys like the ones with the backgrounds, and have been asking me to go to more completed work, so I'm good with that. Because I can do it, man. I can do it. All right, now we'll leave the Sharpie alone. We'll get back to work here. Okay, I got that done. Got that done. Now I need a brown for the strap. which I did not pull out yet. However, I am going to go for the the standard E31 because it's time to do the shading real quick. Got to be very careful with this because, like I said, you can muddy this up really fast by putting down too much ink in one spot. I'm going to go ahead and do the tear duct there. But you see, you want to put in the details that would be a shadow line, not necessarily just blacking everything out. Because people's faces don't do that. I mean, unless you're like a drug addict or something, there tends to be a little light underneath this eye. Or unless you have hereditarily dark eyes, which, you know, no offense if that's your case. I know a few friends that are like that too, and it's all part of it. I mean, and see what I'm talking about with that watermark. You know, it makes a great look until it's applied, and then you have to wait for it to dry to see exactly how dark and imposing it's going to be. That's why you got to be careful with these. Because sometimes it can make a really smooth effect, but then other times it can really drown it out, and it'll stand out like a sore thumb, like you laid stickers on the character rather than drew it in. You got to be very cautious of that. I see a lot of guys do that. And they'll dab it in, and it'll all of a sudden take over, and because they'll think there's not enough color there, and then they'll start to do more and more and more and more and more, and you can't do that because what'll end up happening is it'll choke out the picture. It'll choke out the image. Because see, it's already starting to dry and tone right now. Now on this arm, I want to do this just a little bit different, because what's going to happen is I want it to have the tone to it, but I want it to be an internal shadow. And the way you do that is you come in just off the center line of the outside just a little bit, stroke in this way, and then get the underside for that undershadow, but you don't do like the tricep shadow right there. It would have a highlight where the muscle curved, and then the shadow would be down underneath. And muscle shows up a little bit differently in flesh that way, rather than it would, you know, if that was a hard edge for something else. That's why drawing anatomy is really, really hard, and you have to put in a lifelong effort and practice to it, because it'll get your attention real quick. You know, and that's the reason everybody sees it differently, and that's okay too. So that's quite all right. But now, as you can see it drying here, you can see it starting to set and give those pigments where they need to be. And as it further dries, it'll get lighter and lighter, and it'll come out really well. Now what I need next is I want to go with a lighter brown, but yeah, there we go. I knew I pulled it. Okay, I'm going to go with E99 here, which is a baked clay, which is a really nice one when it dries, because it has a leathery look, and that's what I want for the strap right there. Okay, it looks really dark right now, but it'll have a suede look when it dries. Very cool. And from the way the hammer is sticking out this way, you wouldn't see, you know, you won't see the end of it because it's down underneath here. It goes down right there, and it stops right about here in this perspective. That's why you don't see it, because there's a strap on the bottom. It's like he threw it out kind of thing, And that's what I was going for, is as if he tossed it up. And that was the actual look that I was going for with that, believe it or not. Okay, now I'm going to grab a pale blue gray because I want to do a little bit more edging on these things. And this one is, it's a soft one, but you have to be careful with it because it'll thicken up on you real quick by the way you layer it. I just want to add in a couple of little dampening marks like this to kind of tone it down just a little. Not really wash it out, just kind of soften it a little where there's less light. And it gives it a little bit of a more of a forged metal look. See, I'm going back over that now that that's set and around out that edge so it looks so it looks right. So now I'm going to go in here and go right over the gray to add that little bit of a forged blue metal kind of look to it right here. I have to be careful here not to flood this out and make it start flooding out or smudging or bleeding everywhere. Because Copics are very forgiving, but the thing is, if you saturate the ink, it's going to run away from you. It's going to run away, you know, all over the place. It will get bad, out of control. Because you're rehydrating the fluid that was already, the ink fluid that was already on there. So that's the way they work, and that's why they're so forgiving, because when you wet it, it absorbs the ink that you're adding to it right in the spot where you're laying it. But if you oversaturate it with too much liquid, it will start to move. It'll start to walk and creep, and it'll make a big mess. So that's the only reason Copics will bleed. So that's why some people say that they'll bleed, you know, and they won't use them, is because of the fact that they oversaturate with them, and then they tend to get in the way. Okay. Flip over this brush tip here, so when I squiggle this time, it doesn't break it down too much. Kind of bouncing it a little bit, trying not to break the fabric of the tip down. But anyway, now I'm going to see if I can grab a maroon or a brick real quick, which I know I have one. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. I have a carmine here, and I have, let's see, a garnet. I think I'm going to go with the garnet because it's a little darker. It's almost a crimson color. Ooh. It started to flood up on me. Now I'm going to go in here and get these heavy shadow spots and darken this up and bring it to life real quick, because this will make it pop really well. With those lighter reds on there, it'll make it come up quite a bit different when it dries. And because that's a fold there, I'm going to make it peek out just a little bit. Right down here across the seam. Gotta be very careful. These brush tips are very forgiving, but if you mash too hard, it'll walk across and own it. It will literally take over. Cool deal. Now, this one, this carmine is a little bit more of a brandy color. It's got a little more red to it than the than a darker one does. I'm going to go in here and kind of red wash this just a little, because when it dries, it'll soften it up that way. And it'll tend to make it look more like fabric. Uh-oh, got a bleed going. There we go. So, with that said, I'm going to see about grabbing a darker yellow. See if I can't tone up some of this hair a little bit. Because I've decided now that it's dry, I want to go in and liven it up a little bit. Just kind of feather it in just a little to give it a little more color. And feather down to the tip there. And give that highlight right through the middle where the hair covers. Just a little bit. Go for this darker side here. There we go. Now get up under this eyebrow, and we're going to call it done at that point. Just kind of feathering in there to break it up a little, so it'll hold up. But yeah, done deal. Done deal. I am digging it. So I'm going to leave the body armor, the blue in the body armor, plain blue with the two that I've got in there, because I don't really want to go after it too much. I want it to be contrasting to the flesh and to the armor. So I'm going to call it done. I hope you guys dig it. I did want to go back in. I do want to do one more thing. A trick with the eyes, if you really want to mess with them, go in and put a little darker one right on the outside of your highlight like that. Like that right there. Just a little dot of it to bring it out. And it'll make that lighter blue that you want to see pop up. It'll contrast it, and it'll make it jump out at you. So you can handle that from there. But anyway, hope you guys like it. And I'm going to be doing another one yet tomorrow. So probably, I haven't decided yet, okay? It's either going to be, I'm going to do another coloring session tomorrow. I'm going to do a couple more of these to help get the sketchbook filled out, as well as get the cards finished up and get some more techniques and different appliances done. I'm either going to do Daredevil, Hellboy, or I'm going to do, it's either going to be Hellboy tomorrow, or it's going to be Baby Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I've got these cards ready to go, and it'll be one of these two guys for tomorrow. So it'll either be Baby Groot or it'll be Hellboy. And both of them have a different texture to their skin. Groot, of course, has the wood texture for his skin, so it's going to be bark-like, bark-esque. And then the maroon Ravager suit that he's in. And then Hellboy has more of a bright red, leathery type of skin, so it's almost slick. But it's like the easiest way to describe it was the way Mike described it when he described what Hellboy's skin was like. It was going to be more of a dry eel. That's the way he described it, so I think that's what we're going to go with. But I'm going to do one of these two guys over the next 2 days. Either one, whichever one doesn't happen first, it'll happen the next day either way. So I hope you guys dig it, and that's what I got for today. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.